All right. Welcome out to the Rope and Real Estate Podcast. And today our special guest is Erin Mehler.
Hi.
It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
It's going to be fun. Okay, Erin, we're going to play some Jenga today.
Okay.
You up for this?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not competitive, are you?
Not at all.
Not at all.
No.
Maybe a little bit.
No.
Maybe just a little smidgen bit.
Yeah. Just a tiny bit. Yeah.
And we'll see how it goes.
Exactly.
Well, let's get started. If you want to start first, you can pull the first block out.
Okay.
Once this game ends, then the podcast is over.
It just ends?
We're done. Yeah.
What if it ends in like 2 minutes? It's a 2 minute
I mean, you could
podcast?
do that, I guess. Yeah, it'd be like super short.
Okay. No pressure, right?
You pick any of those blocks you want. Oh, that's good. That's a good call right there.
Oh.
You're a seasoned pro.
Well, no. I'm nervous. I'm nervous about the Jenga.
I don't know if you should be nervous.
Okay.
Oh, this is what we're playing for today.
Oh.
I have some gift cards. So you can pick two that whoever the winner is gets to pick two, and then the loser only gets one.
Okay.
So we have Cafe Rio, $10 Cafe Rio. We have R&R Barbecue, $25. Spotify, $10.
Okay.
And then we have Starbucks for $15.
Oh, how will I ever choose?
I don't even know. We'll see. I don't even know if you have to worry about it.
Maybe
Because we'll see if you win.
Well, I get one either way, right?
Yeah, you get one.
Okay.
All right. So you've been in real estate for how long now?
It'll be 12 years in June.
That's wild. Okay. So what got you into real estate? How did that all start for you?
You know, it's funny because when I was like young, like, oh gosh, probably like 22, I had just gotten married and I was like, I think it'd be really cool to get into real estate. But back then you had to go to the classes and
Like in person.
But I heard like they're going to make it available to do it online. And that was like January 2nd that it was going to be. And like January 3rd, I paid the money and signed up.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Like right away.
Yeah.
You're doing this.
Yeah. So I would just do it at night. I remember like I'd have like my older two kids would be in bed. I'd have one twin in the little bouncer thing. I'd be holding another one and I'd just be on my computer.
Give them classes.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly. So it was like the second that it became possible for me to do it from home, I was right on top of it. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So then your real estate career started out, and then how did that start to go? Because you had little ones.
Oh my gosh.
So balancing that, was that kind of tricky at the beginning?
Yeah. So we, like right after I finished the courses, we moved to St. George for a year.
Oh, interesting.
And
was that for your husband's work?
Yeah, it was. So we were in St. George, and I actually drove back up here July of that summer, took the test, passed, put my license on hold immediately, and then the next May of 2011, we moved back to...
Oh, God. So you put it on hold that whole time in St. George?
I put it on hold in St. George because I just didn't know what we were going to do, if we were going to stay in St. George or what was going to happen, but we ended up moving back after a year.
Okay.
And the week that we moved back, I just started, and I would bring like my little kids into the office with me sometimes. I remember one time they were like, come on property tour. They were doing an office property tour. And I'm like, okay. I had no idea what it was, but I was just so committed to like making it work. And I put my 4 kids in the car, rolled up to a house, left them in the car, walked through the house, realized that probably wasn't going to work, didn't know anyone.
Yeah.
Like literally didn't. And I was like, cool, okay, well, I'll come to the next one, but I'll get a babysitter. You know what I mean? So I was one of those people that was kind of crazy, but I'm sure everyone in the office was like, what is this lady doing? But I just had to figure it out. Completely on my own, had to figure it out. So
that's a question for a lot of people, right? Like they get into real estate, they've got little kids, they've got like a family they're trying to balance, or even like you get single moms who are trying to do that right now.
Yeah.
So they get into real estate and they're trying to say, how do I do? So what are some things that you learned over the course of time that helped you be everywhere at all times with all the stuff you had on your plate?
Oh gosh. It's funny because I would say like, I just had grit. I didn't know what the end goal was going to be, but I knew, and I was in a position where I needed money. Like we really needed money. And I was like, I can either get a regular job and be capped out on what I can earn and be beholden to someone else's hours, or I know I could make a lot of money doing this if I just don't quit and I keep pushing. And you think you're going to have flexibility, right? You think you get into real estate.
Right?
Yeah.
Because like, I want to have freedom. That's what
I want to be able to have a flexible schedule and work around my kids' schedule. And the reality is that I was gone at times when I would have liked to have been home, but I was able to move my schedule around and have a more flexible schedule than being on like a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Which was great. And so I just didn't quit. I can remember sitting in my broker's office and looking at him and being like, I know I look like this crazy mom with little kids that has no business being here, but I promise you I will be one of your top agents one day. And I just really believed that I would. I wanted it. I was willing to look like an idiot. I was willing to learn, I would go to as many different classes and show up to stuff where I was completely out of my comfort zone, completely alone and out of place. And I was just willing to be uncomfortable because I wanted it so bad. So that was the early days,
Were there times during that you kind of questioned yourself? Were there times or did you always have this mindset, you're like, you know what? I got it. Like the odds are stacked against me. I'm going to push through this thing.
I don't know that there were times where I doubted that I could. I don't know that there are times that I doubted that I could do it. There were moments in a specific transaction where I doubted whether I should be doing it or not, because you learn as you go, right? And so who you align yourself with is really important to make sure you have people that are helping you as you go. And I did have that. So there were times where I was like, I wasn't afraid to tell a client I didn't know either. Like, that's a great question. I'm not certain, but I can find out and I'll get back to you. Versus the having to like save face and making something up or whatever. So I was always really, really aware of the liability of being a real estate agent and having kids at home. I was really concerned with making sure that I knew a lot. And I still put a lot of emphasis on that, on knowing what's going on in the market.
What would you say would be some of the biggest challenges that you've had over the last several years? Like, are there certain things that would come up as like your biggest obstacles that you had?
Yeah, for sure. I'm making myself sound really impressive, but it's been an up and down.
Really good.
So I've hit a lot of different challenges. For the first several years, I would say being a mom and trying to build a career when my kids were young was really challenging. And I was constantly pulled I was constantly beating myself up. I'm not doing enough. The mom guilt was so heavy.
And like in your home life, is that what you're like, like being a mom?
The mom guilt was really heavy.
Yeah, so you're like, I'm doing success over here in real estate.
Yeah.
This isn't, I feel like I'm failing at this other part of the being a mom.
Definitely. And I never felt like I was failing. I really tried to show up for my kids. And I'm a good mom. I have been a good mom, but people would, you'll hear women that work, and I might piss some people off saying this, but
I don't care.
You hear
it's just us playing Jenga.
Yeah. You hear women that have like these careers and they're like, you can have a career and be the mom too. And that is true. But to pretend like your kids don't make some sacrifices and your family doesn't make sacrifices for you to be an entrepreneur and build a business, or any woman that works knows what I'm talking about. When you have little kids, and I had 4 little kids, 8 and under at home, trying to build this business, if I ever missed a game, there was guilt. If I got home late and they'd been waiting for me, and I had a great nanny. I had the same nanny for 6 straight years, which doesn't happen, and that helped a ton. But you miss out on some stuff sometimes, and I wouldn't change anything. It's worked out really great. It's blessed my family immensely. But the mom guilt was heavy, How
do you deal with that? Like, what would you do to get through that?
it would just kind of like, it's like a teeter-totter. Okay. At times I was just killing it as a mom. And then at times I was killing it as an agent, and it just teetered back and forth. I was constantly like, if I could just get the scales to balance.
It could be perfect.
The balance would be great.
Time when it was ever perfect?
No. And I've learned a lot about that.
Right? It always felt a little bit out.
Yeah.
Weighing one side or the other. There's always it was a little bit off.
Yeah. And it was always a little bit off. And for years I talked about, I just want to figure out how to have balance. And I have not figured out how to have balance, but I have figured out how to be at peace with imbalance. And that imbalance is just normal, and that there's always going to be that evening of the scales in all the different areas of your life. I would say, like, I can be a really great mom and a really great real estate agent, but I'll completely neglect my health, right?
And there's an amazing, I mean, I referenced, there's a book that I read a long time ago. It's called The Three Marriages by David White.
Okay.
And he's a poet, and he goes through and he talks about you have these three relationships. You have a relationship with your spouse or your family, then you have a relationship with work, then you have a relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
And then you have these three marriages, and they're always kind of like pulling your attention all different directions. And so it's, when you're in one of those relationships, like, you have the other ones that are pulling.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, especially us in real estate, like, the relationship with work, like, takes so much pull from all the other places.
Yeah.
Because if we're in work and you get a call from home,
yeah,
we're like, I'll get that later.
Yeah.
But if we're at home and we're in that relationship and work calls, like, I better get that call.
Totally.
So, like, sometimes it's kind of out of balance of the fact that how strong our relationship is with. And in the book, it talks about, like, how this mistress of work calls when you're when you're with like doing things that you want to do, and you're like, well, I better take that call. But the hard part about real estate is it's insatiable.
Yeah.
Like it wants your attention 24/7.
Definitely.
7 days a week. And so, what were some of the things that you found that helped to, like, move through that place where you're, I love the phrase that you said of being like comfortable in this idea of imbalance.
Yeah. So it's funny because you talked about those three different relationships, and the one that I couldn't figure out for the longest time was the relationship with myself. I would give to everyone else, and it's really funny because I would say, like, I get massages, I'll go for a run, I'll go for a walk, I go have girls' nights or girls' weekends. I do things for myself, but I never feel like it's self-care. Like, I feel like something's off because I don't feel better after. So I practice these, like, acts of self-care, but I don't think I'm getting it. I don't think it's working. Like, I just couldn't grasp this concept of what self-care really is. And I was going through a lot of different stuff in my life that was me finally, like, being honest about some things that, it's not that I hadn't been honest. It's that I would tell the wrong people. I would talk to other people about things going on in my life that were pretty heavy to carry. But the people or the person that I should have been talking to about it, I avoided that conversation because of the conflict that would come from it, right? And so I'm referencing, I don't know if you know that I got divorced a little over a year ago.
Oh, has it been a year now?
Yeah, and so that was a huge thing.
That disrupts your whole life.
It disrupts everything. And for a lot of years, my closest friends, my circle, my tight-knit group in the office knew that I was pretty, I was struggling in that for a long time, but the person who should have known didn't as much, but wasn't getting the full truth. And so I started being honest with myself and with the people that I needed to be honest with about some things that I had been people pleasing. I had been saying what everyone wanted me to say or what I thought people wanted me to say. And I would do that in my business too. Like, I will bend over backwards and step completely out of the bounds of what a real estate agent should be doing to just please you and make you happy and do all these extra things that have nothing to do with a real estate transaction, because if you like me enough, you'll continue to lose. Like, that was my business model, right? And I was a great agent and super professional, but I just never thought that, like, certain things were enough.
Oh, that's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
You're trying to guess what everybody else wants.
Totally.
And then you're trying to do all this work because your business is built on relationships.
Totally.
And you're always trying to, like, go the extra mile. And so that makes it tough when you're going extra mile all the time to really push.
Well, I just didn't have any boundaries in my life. I didn't understand what boundaries were. I had zero boundaries. I said yes to everything. I mean, there was a point, Erin, where I was part-time managing my office, doing 40 transactions a year. I was on the PTA at my kids' elementary school, running their school carnival every year, running 3 client appreciation events at my office. and also doing PTSA and senior night at the high school. I mean, I said yes to everything. And people would be like, how do you do it? How do you do it? And I would tell them like, well, you see all these things on the outside, but the background is a mess. Like I am a mess in the background. My home life isn't what I want it to be, but I was just really trying to like keep myself busy enough that I could avoid dealing with a bunch of stuff in my life. And so I started, it's so dumb, but I was literally scrolling, like watching stories on Instagram one day, probably about 3 years ago. And I saw this post and it said what people think self-care looks like. And it was a bathtub with like rose petals and candles around it and this serene setting. And then the next slide said what self-care really is. And it went to the next one and it was like this person going, no. And the light bulb went off. And I was like, oh, self-care is saying no to things.
Yeah.
That you, instead of saying yes and then like complaining about it the whole time because you're like, I don't know why I said I would do this. I committed to this. I don't really want to be doing this, but now I'm in it and I have to do it, which is like the story of my life. Yeah. Saying yes to everything.
There's like this built up animosity that you kind of have underneath, right? I mean,
totally.
You're kind of upset that you're even in the situation.
Totally.
So you're not even showing up the way you'd want to show up in the first place anyway.
And constantly exhausted, constantly burnout, constantly like living off of caffeine, eating fast food because I didn't have time, just surviving pretty much. And so I started by I started by saying, I got to pause before I answer when someone asked me to do something. And it was really hard to say no after saying yes for so long. So I would just say, let me think about this and get back to you. Let me check my calendar and I'll get back to you. And I forced myself to say that first. Whether I knew it was going to be a yes or a no, I started there. And then I would get back to someone and say, oh, I'm so sorry. I would love to be there for you, but I'm not available. I can't do it. And then it got easier and I'd just be like, oh no, sorry, I can't, until saying no became easier. And once I started saying no to other people, that's when I started saying yes to myself.
Interesting.
So for a long time, I said yes to everyone else, and I didn't realize I was telling myself no. And it was a value thing. It was my value came from feeling valuable to from pleasing other people, from doing what I thought made other people happy. And it was just a story that I told myself, right? And so I completely switched to really getting honest with myself about what makes me happy. Being in better health makes me a lot happier. Having a lot calmer life at home, like after work, makes me a lot happier. Being way less busy, I am so much happier. I take care of my clients and I'll help out at specific events, but I don't have any long-term commitments. In fact, I was on the board of realtors and I loved that, but I ran for that, got elected, and like 6 months later started going through a divorce. So I didn't show up the way that I would have wanted to show up for that position. Yeah. And when it came time to run again, they asked me, are you going to do this? And I'm like, I can't tell you yes, because I know I'm not going to show up at the level that I would expect I show up at to do this. So in the future, yes, this is something I want to participate in, but I'm still in this phase of life where I can't say yes and show up the way that I want to show up,
How hard is that for you to say that still? It's still hard?
Every once in a while, it's still hard. And the thing that I'm working on this year specifically is I realized that if it's far out, like if someone's like, can you go on this trip 3 months from now, this girls' weekend, or do you want to go to this concert with me? It's in 4 months. I'd be like, sure, totally, and just say yes. But then without fail, that event would approach and I'd be like, I don't really want to go to this. And I realized that by saying yes way in advance, I would come up with an excuse at the last minute all the time and be like, oh, I really wanted to go with you, but this thing came up. It's my kids. Yeah. Kids. Sorry if it wasn't the kids. I would still say no because I didn't really. So I was backing out of a lot of stuff at the last minute. And I realized I was constantly doing this to people that I care about and really close friends. And instead of saying yes and then backing out at the last minute, I just said, you know what? I have a really hard time making a commitment that far out. And rather than cancel on you 4 months from now, which there's a good chance that I could because of my kids and my life. I don't know if I'll be available this far out, but I know I'll be able to buy tickets to that the week before if it's something we want to do. So if you want someone to commit now, you can take someone else. If we get there closer and I'm available and we can do that, then yeah, that'd be great. But let's hold off before I commit, So I'd just be honest with people, right? But you can't be honest with other people if you're not being honest with yourself. And that was a really hard process for me to learn. And it took going through some pretty difficult stuff and really, I feel like I walked through a war zone for a year. I can remember at the worst of it, being able to visualize like literally red hot bullets flying by because I was walking through this war zone in my life, trying to like break free of, all this stuff that I had built up that.
Yeah, I think, and my impression on that would be, I imagine there are people in your world that there's some that might have a hard time with that because you were all of a sudden like becoming this other version of you. And
totally.
So that for some people, they're like, oh my gosh, like that, I don't even know who you are anymore. Then you have the other group, there's another group that would be so supportive, like it's about time. Like
totally.
So you got like this, like almost like this dividing group of people. You get the group that's going to be like pulling you back to get back to who you were before of like, but you used to say yes to everything. Like, well, I never really said yes. I just never really. You have the other group that like respected your decision of like becoming this other version of you.
Yeah.
And so.
Well, another really interesting change that's, an example of that is I used to care what everyone thought of me. Like I could have met you yesterday and you have zero impact on my life. And if I thought you didn't like me, I cared. Now I'm like, well, I'm not trying to be the type of person that people don't like.
Yeah.
But whether or not I have your validation and approval in how I live my life is not of importance to me. There are a lot of people that are really hurt when you go through a divorce. And a lot of those people are like your ex-in-laws who you love and care about. And they're just so hurt that in order to go through that process, you have to become strong enough to know that it's okay for people to experience whatever they're going to experience in their life. It's okay. Like nobody gets through this life without experiencing pain and hurt and going through hard stuff. And my family and my tribe, the people that I'm really close with, even though sometimes I think it's been hard for them to understand what I'm going through, I've always had their love. I've always had their support. They've always stood by me. And you know how you hear a lot in like this personal development revolution that we're in, like you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and it's okay to outgrow relationships, and sometimes friends need to stay. I get what that means, and there is a huge element of that that's true, but there's another element of it for me that I got very clear on going through this, that the people who have shown up for me and been there for me in my darkest hours are the people who truly love me. And whether or not they're entrepreneurs and trying to live their life in the same way I am or not doesn't matter. Like my family is my family. My closest friends are my closest friends. I will always be there for them. I'll always show up for them if they need me. And I will always value and treasure those relationships. I don't outgrow people who would drop everything to be there for me, show up for me, defend me, have my back. And there are a handful of people who were that for me. That's awesome. I'm like, I don't know how you are still my friend
to put
after what you've seen me, go through the last 3 years, but they love me and they are my friend. And I'm like, I will always show up for you and be here for you when you need me, even though I don't show up in the same ways that I used to. Yeah. So
how have you seen, because that's a pretty transformative process to go through. And what I've noticed is that when you go through, and I've seen this in my own life, is that when I go through significant personal changes, my business grows in direct proportion to that. Like there's things that like my business adjusts and changes.
Yeah.
And I become a better business person.
Totally.
Because of the person that I have now become.
Totally.
And so how have you seen that transcend into your real estate business now?
Well, you can't go through that and not have it impact your business. And I feel like there was a period where I just call it a selfish year. I took a year where I was just really, really selfish, and I would admit it. And I'm like, I will get back to giving to other people a lot again, but for now I've got to like make up for years of not giving to myself. And I just had to kind of like, you know, be alone for a minute and go through it. And so I was always the person who was so good at reaching out to my SOI, and that some of that slipped. And so you feel that a little bit in your business, but for the most part, my clients are pretty loyal, and I've been okay. I've kept working, and gosh, that year, like there were 2 years going through the divorce where I'm like, I don't even remember certain transactions, and I don't know how. You just had to force yourself to do it. But now being on the other side of it, I feel like I am more focused on the things that are important in a transaction and showing up for people really high level in certain areas that matter, the professional side of things. And then some of the other stuff, instead of just trying to please my clients and say, oh yeah, I'll just tell them the truth and be like, well, this is how this works. And you know, you have these options to do this, and putting the liability on them. I don't know how to explain that. You probably understand what I'm talking about being an agent, but just performing at a higher level. And one of the processes that I went through, I got really good at journaling and just writing everything down, just kind of brain dump after brain dump. And I got really clear on like what my value systems are and what's important to me and what's important to me in my business and what is my role. How can I perform even better at a higher level for these people? What makes a great real estate agent, you know, and just going through it and actually laying it all out and putting some organization and some structure into it. And going back to the whole balance thing, I think, and I don't have anything figured out. If I say it, I figured out, it's not that I have anything figured out, but it's like maybe a little piece of the puzzle. Like here's another puzzle piece that I figured out, is that for a long time I was like, I want balance. And to me, that meant being like a level 10 in every area or a level 9 in every area. And the way I would do that is I would like go all into one thing and get that functioning really well. And then I'd go over here and go all into this thing and get that functioning really well. And then I'd be over here, and all my focus would kind of be, and I stopped doing that and putting that much pressure on myself. Instead, I started to understand better like the compound effect and habits and the daily little rituals that we do that create the consistency that deliver results. It was such a hard concept for me to figure out, just doing one small thing every day. And even if you don't feel like doing it anyway, and being okay if like yesterday I was at a level 9 on that task and today I'm at a level 5.
That whole premise around, because it's interesting, like hearing about your backstory of having no boundaries, they get into a place where you have some structures and boundaries in place right now. So for people that are listening in on this, then they feel like their life is maybe out of whack, or they're feeling that they're kind of not having boundaries. Like what would be some examples now of things that are like either non-negotiables for you, or things that now are the kind of these little habits that you've like, this is something that I've now put in place that might seem small, but it's actually been a game changer for me in my business.
Yeah. It's so funny because the game changers in my business have been like me personally taking care of myself. And so I'm like, I know I'm talking a lot about like self-care or whatever, but it's been a game changer in my business. So like sticking to the same schedule. And by the way, I have an 80% rule. I don't ever tell myself I need to do something 100% anymore. I'm always like 80%. If I do all of this at 80%, which means I can miss a day, I can have a day where I don't show up. But if 80% of the time I'm performing at this level, I'm going to have 100% success, right?
Got it. Okay.
So I don't follow all of these habits perfectly, but for the most part I do. So getting up early. I've been reading the 5 a.m. Club again, and I'm like, oh, 5 a.m. is early. Like, I don't know if I can do 5 a.m., but I kind of fluctuate between 5:30 and 7 a.m. depending on what I have going on that day and how exhausted I am, what time I went to bed. But I get up early. I really don't ever sleep in past 7 a.m. That's kind of my cutoff. Yeah. Maybe once a month or every couple months. So I get up early. I work out in the morning. If I ever tried to work out in the afternoon, I very quickly realize I can't, and I need to do it first thing in the morning. And if I go to the gym later than 6:30, my phone will start to ring at the gym, and business stuff starts popping up. So I'm like, it's better for me if I just go and get that done. It's my think time. It's my self-care time. And one thing that helped me a ton is I was going through kind of the fire in my life and things got really hard for a while. I would go to the gym early in the morning and I started lifting weights, which I'd never done before, because I'm like, if I can make myself really physically strong, it will make me stronger in every area. If I can push myself through something that I think I can't do, and I would like push for more weight, the more I push myself physically, I could get through the days and I'd be like, well, this is hard, but I also did this morning and that was really hard. So I know I can do it.
You've already set yourself up from doing something heavy or doing something hard. You're like, okay, I already knocked that out.
Totally.
Everything else is out. It's all downhill from here.
And this was a super important change in my life because I had, and a lot of women and men too, I think will relate to this, the beating yourself up about how you look and whether you're enough or not. And like the body image, and are we keeping up with what society says is beautiful? There's just so much comparison that goes on. Our kids feel it, we feel it, you know? And so for my whole life leading up to this, and being like 41, I'm 43 now, about 41, maybe 40, I would go to the gym and work out because I had to look like this other woman. It was about like, if I had that body, then I'll feel happier.
Then happy.
Then I'll be enough. Then if I looked like that, like I would always be like, if I could get back to what I was before I started having babies, then I'd feel good about myself.
Yeah.
You know, that constant negative self-talk. And I got to a place where stuff got so rough for me that I was like, I don't care. I don't care what I look like. I just want to love myself and be happy with me for the first time. I really don't care. Going to the gym became about anything but how I looked on the outside after. It really became a mental thing for me. And letting go of all of that first was the game changer to where like my level of fitness and health is probably the best that it's been in my entire life at 43, because I don't care about what the result or the outcome is going to be anymore. I just care about making sure that I show myself that love. Once I changed kind of like I'm doing this because this is the outcome that will make me happy. And I'm doing this because this is how I show myself love. This is how I feel. This is going to point me in the direction that I want to go in my life. And by being consistent with this thing, I'm just going to trust that wherever I end up, this is a habit that takes me where I want to go generally. And then I'm going to let God or the universe take me there. And in doing that, like one of the coolest outcomes and changes of that was that every single day that I lived before, I was living for like the next day or this thing that was down the line that was going to happen and come up that was going to be the fulfillment and the joy down the road. So every single day I would live this exhausting life of doing all of these things because someday it was going to pay off and I was going to feel all those, the rewards of it later on. And now I get home at night and I might answer a phone call or something. It's not like I'm never on my phone or doing an email. For the most part, I get home and I'm there with my kids. And I'm like, isn't today great? Like today was awesome. I loved today. The experience of today was amazing. Can't change anything in the past. Don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but I loved today. Today has been great. And this moment right here with you guys eating dinner or whatever, it's awesome. I love it, you know? And so I stopped really, like everything that I do, I really want to be present in today and enjoy today and love today. And I have to kind of reset and remind myself of that because old habits are hard to break, but that's the goal, right? Is to enjoy the journey and trust the process.
That's really cool, especially when you look at this idea of letting go, because you've let go of so many things, but you have so much more because you've been able to let go of that stuff.
Totally.
Which is really fascinating, right? Because you think of to get things. Usually you'd think you have to go grab and hold on to things or try to grab all these different things. And really it's been the opposite, where it's been your ability to let go of the future that's unknown and letting go of the past and letting go of people thinking about you and letting go of all these different things. And what it's done is just like, okay, cool. Like now I'm just here. Yeah. This is all I've got. It's just me and the lifestyle that I have. And this is what I'm living into. And there's a real power behind that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I get it. There is, you know, Yeah, resisting. I resisted. It's so funny because you're like, this is what I want. This is what I want. But this is how I want to get there. You try to control it, right? But you resist. Maybe there's a better way. I believe in God. I know not everyone does, but there's a power or an energy or an existence, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. For me, it's like, okay, Erin, be honest with yourself. If this is what you want in your life and this is the general direction that you're heading, and you having this limited experience are like, this is how I'm going to get there. But someone else knows better and could get you there faster if you'll just like surrender and just say, I'm going to do these things every day. And is there anything I need to tweak or change? Okay, maybe I'll try doing this, and being open to like maybe things come to you easier than you thought they would if you're open to opportunities and possibilities. It's a really different way to live, to kind of let go of control. And I revert to trying to control things all the time. And I have to be like, no, you're not in control. Like, be open to what's meant for you, because what is meant for you is probably greater than anything you could ever do on your own if you'll just allow it to happen and stop resisting it and getting in the way of it, you know?
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Like, oftentimes I think that you see like a cookbook, you see a picture of a recipe, and you see like this image, and then you have like a recipe that gets you to that place.
Yeah.
I think that oftentimes, like, when we look at our lives, like, there's a picture of what we want, and we already have like a preconceived notion of what the recipe is, and we get so committed to that recipe.
Totally.
Even though that might not even be the right recipe. Like, we might even have the wrong recipe on the right, this different picture, but we're so, oftentimes we get so committed to this recipe, like, well, I want this, so I'm going to keep doing this.
Totally.
Until I get it. You're like, well, you don't even know if that's going to work because you've never even had that there.
Totally.
So you were like, it's interesting, like, because I see that in people in real estate all the time, where they want a certain success, they want a certain thing, but they're committed they already know how to get there.
Yeah.
But they've never been there.
Yeah.
So I was just talking to a new agent the other day, and he was clear that he had every idea of how it was going to work. And I was like, I don't know. I've never seen anybody do it that way, but that's an interesting process. But he was so committed that was going to be the only way.
Yeah.
But the idea of just like letting go and just having this like other approach where things just kind of fall into place if you have the vision of where you want to end up. Yeah. And just like letting go of like to kind of control everything. So
and I feel like there's a process for everyone. And like for me, trying to control everything and realizing I couldn't is how I was able to let that go. Yeah. But one of the coolest things about like learning boundaries and saying no and really doing this self-care where you allow yourself to be honest with yourself and others, right? Without the shame, without the guilt, which is a hard thing because some people are going to really question what you're doing, and people that you love and care about are going to be like, you're wrong. You know, it's a hard process to go through, to break away from like conditioning that is all around us in a million different ways, wherever you live in the world, right? You have the way you were raised, your parents, like I grew up in Seattle. Like the conditioning in Seattle is different than the conditioning here in Utah, what your peers and the people around you believe and think. And so it's like the city that you live in, the state you live in, the country you live in, you're going to be taught the right way, the wrong way, what you should be, what you shouldn't be, how you should do things, how you should not do things. It's different everywhere you live. But the truth is that the only person that has the answers for you is you. And learning how to dig deep and get in touch with your soul and understand what's right for you and what the yeses are for you and what the nos are for you. It's a very personal journey and discovery to be on and go through. But once you can do that for yourself, the greatest gift of that is that you'll let everyone else around you do that as well. So like your kids, you'll be able to love them unconditionally and allow them to make some mistakes and go through a little bit of pain and hurt and learn things that you were able to learn by surrendering to some really hard stuff and like kind of like going into the dark a little bit. Do you know Louis Hamner?
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah. He owned Fidelity. Well, he owned Vanguard Title that sold to Fidelity. But he just told me about this book. I can't remember the name of it, but it talks about how like we avoid the dark parts of ourselves. We avoid the things that are painful and hurt. And when you kind of surrender to the dark, it allows you to experience more light. I know that's kind of a really like deep stretch.
The thought is like, avoiding all those different things isn't going to make them go away.
Yeah.
And and you're just trying to close different doors, and you think that that's just going to, it's not going to
we just want to feel good. Everyone just wants to feel good. We don't want to feel unhappy. We don't want to feel sad. But sometimes by addressing the things that have made us sad or been hard and just being honest about it, just telling the truth about what it really was, puts it to rest, and there's more light on the other side of it. There's more, and then understanding too that you're always going to face another challenge. I know that I could lose everything that I've built and I would be okay. I would be okay. I could lose everything and go down to a bank account where there was zero, and I've built stuff up once. I've built stuff up twice. I've been able to build and lose and build and lose and build and lose. And there was a period in my life where I really thought if I lost all of these things that I've worked so hard for, that'd be it. And I'm no, that wouldn't be it. 43, I have a lot of life left to live. I could lose everything and it wouldn't impact my happiness. It might cause me to have to work really hard and go through this phase that I've been through, but I know I could do it faster. I know I could do it better. I know I could help other people in the process. And I am okay with what my journey in this life is going to be, because I know it's just building me and helping me grow and become who I was meant to be. And I just want to enjoy the journey. I just want to enjoy the ride. And I want to be able to learn what I'm supposed to learn, So I don't know.
Super cool. Yeah, I think that's great. I think that this idea of coming to light makes a lot of sense when you're bringing the different things out, because if you have things in the darkness, it's all hidden and it's all put away, and it's all, and then it's all inside, right? It's all on the ins, and you're holding all this stuff in. Whereas if you bring it to the outside, you can kind of let that go and frees you up a little bit.
And you put your light on it and it lightens it all. So, yeah.
Well, cool. Okay.
I don't know whose turn it is.
I think it's yours.
Is it mine? I've been sitting here
waiting patiently,
just chatting away.
Now we'll get now it's picking up pace here.
For sure. The battle is on.
I keep thinking to myself, there's no way I can go 3 games and lose.
You're lucky.
All right.
That might be the last loose piece.
This might be it. So if you had to give advice to a brand new agent who's trying to get started in the business, what would be your lesson that you would, or if you had to start over, if you all of a sudden lost everything, what would be your focus as you were restarting out?
You know what? If I could give advice to someone new, I'm going to keep it to 3 things. 1, work hard, work really, really hard.
Okay.
Know that you're going to have to push yourself and work really, really hard. 2, put a lot of focus on, oh my gosh. I lost. You finally won.
Finally. That was good. That went to the very, very end. Okay, so work hard.
But learn a lot. Don't BS your way through it. Make it a priority to keep learning. And I know you're big on this too. In real estate specifically, but also grow. Read books, listen to audibles, listen to podcasts, and never stop learning. Be committed to knowledge. I think that's a huge part, regardless of what industry you're in. I don't like saying be the best, be one of the best, be at the top of your game, and make it a priority that, in our industry specifically, we're helping people with the largest investment they'll ever make in their life. For most people, don't take that lightly. Don't mess with other people's money. Make sure that you educate yourself. And as a brand new agent, you have a lot to learn. So just dig in and do a lot, right? And then the third thing I would say, and I bet you if you asked real estate agents who have been in the industry for 10 years or longer, I would bet 95% or more would agree with me. Once you start getting those paychecks, be really disciplined with how you spend that money, what you do with that money. Be really good at saving. Going back, I wish I would have saved 50% of everything for taxes and investing, and making sure that I set really good habits, because there were enough resources for me of people who were investing and buying investment properties at the time that there's no reason I couldn't have said, hey, this is really scary. This is skydiving to me, investing money in properties. But going back now and having done it now and realizing it's the greatest thing ever, creating that passive income, I wish I would have done it a lot earlier, a lot sooner, and had put more emphasis on that.
That makes
at a younger age. I would be in a completely different position right now. And this is, I mean, for anyone listening to this, whatever you're doing in life, investing in real estate is a game changer, because I had I owned 4 houses before my divorce. I had a 1/3 ownership in a townhome in St. George, an Airbnb outside of Moab, my old home, which was just a traditional rental, and then the home that I lived in that had a basement apartment. So 4 rental incomes coming in, and over $2 million in real estate that I owned, and got down to where like the payments that I was making toward properties was under $900 a month for all of those properties. And so I was living in a really nice house on the border of Lehigh and Highland, and like my expenses were $900, and that was like utilities, everything. So creating that passive income, if I would have done it younger, sooner, quicker, and not been so afraid or just been undisciplined with money, it would have been a game changer, So
there's something about that, like becoming your own best client.
Totally.
Really focusing on building that up.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, not being afraid to figure out how to help yourself get there. I helped a lot of other people buy investment properties, and
hey, help a lot of people make a lot of money.
I was really comfortable with like knowing what a good deal was for them.
It's so surprising that those years that you thought of yourself last.
Yeah, I'm like, this is a no-brainer. You should do this. This is a no-brainer. I would find properties that I could have purchased myself and tell other people about them and have them buy them.
Yeah.
This would be perfect for this client. And I still do that. But also I need to do it for myself, and I wish I would have understood all of that sooner, and understood the huge reward that came from you can be very low risk, very, very low risk on buying property. And even now, like people are like, well, it's more expensive than it's ever been. Interest rates are higher. There's better opportunities now than there have been in the last 3 years. So.
There's some amazing deals out there.
Yeah.
So this is awesome. Thank you for sharing, and thanks for letting me win. That was really nice.
Now
what do you want your gift? You can pick whatever gift card you want out of here. R&R is the most expensive one.
I was going to say R&R before I knew the most expensive one, because I love R&R.
You should take R&R.
Okay, I'll take R&R.
Okay, good deal. Nice work.
Thanks.
Thanks again for tuning in to this episode of Rev Up in Real Estate podcast. And we have our special guest, Erin Mehler, who actually let me win for once. Super nice of her. But tune in to our other episodes. You can follow us on social media. Go to YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever else on social you want to find us. And thanks for listening.